Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's Movie Log. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you are doing well. Today we're going to be talking about Jon Favreau's Star Wars series. So as you can see here, Jon Favreau's Star Wars series has a $100 million budget. Oh man, that is a lot of money, and if it does not do well, if it does not perform, that is going to be another major loss for Lucasfilm and Disney. However, I think there are definitely a couple things that are going toward and going for this series, and also, of course, there are the couple things that are going against it as well. But let's find out what we know about this series so far, so that before we dive into what I think the series is going to be and whether I think it's going to be good or not. So, actor and director Jon Favreau of Iron Man and The Jungle Book is currently hard at work executive producing and writing a live-action Star Wars TV series for Lucasfilm and Disney's new direct-to-consumer streaming service. So already off the bat, Jungle Book to me was good. I liked it. I thought that the motion capture was very powerful. I don't think it was nearly as good as some people say, because the motion capture was not, to me, the most compelling thing that could have been out there. But no one can deny that Iron Man is still a crown jewel in the MCU. There might be some people who say other films have outshined it, but I don't think anyone can get away from the fact that it was Iron Man that got the MCU started. It was Jon Favreau's Iron Man that got the MCU started. Now, of course, he may have stumbled along the way with a couple other projects, but at the same time, we have to understand that he's a very talented guy. He's a good director. He has a very good eye, and also he's a very good writer too. I mean, he knows how to write action films. He's already shown himself not only in the MCU but also with The Jungle Book as well. He showed his visionary style, and he showed that he can actually handle very big budget projects, which we know The Jungle Book was. So already I have more confidence in this show than anything else that Disney has in the works at this point, including Episode 9. I'm more hyped for this TV show than I am for Episode 9, because Episode 9, we still don't really know a whole lot about it, but I know enough about who's involved, where it's having to come from because of the tragedy that was Episode 8. So at the end of the day, this is looking a lot better because it's a new story with new characters. So to me, it's almost a way for Star Wars to get a fresh start, and in the cans of a capable writer, director, producer, I think it could end up being something very good in the long run. Now, an article in the New York Times reveals that the 10-episode first season, 10 episodes, $100 million, oh my goodness, again, will have a combined budget of $100 million, making each episode roughly $10 million apiece. Ooh, boy. Considering that the CBS's all-access Star Trek Discovery, rest in peace, Star Trek, guys. Go check out Doomcock. He has been doing some amazing coverage on everything going on with Star Trek at this point. He held a vigil, essentially, for it the other night. He had a huge live stream. It was very successful. It was really great. He had a 3.5-hour live stream, talking about, resting, resting in peace, unfortunately, the Star Trek universe. So that is, kind of the main thing, too, that I'm kind of concerned with, is whether or not this show is going to follow in the same footsteps. Obviously, it's a, it's a different part of it's a different part of the TV service. It's not it's not under the Disney umbrella as far as Star Trek Discovery Star Trek Discovery is concerned. Ooh, this guy's, I'm gonna be honest, just gonna break the fourth wall for a second. This is like the 5th time I've tried to make this video. I am just off today, guys, so I'm so sorry. But anyway, when it comes to Star Trek Discovery, I really do think that that show has kind of shown what happens when you have somebody who can take the concept and just basically distort it into this modern politic nonsense, and I really do hope that does not happen with Star Wars, the show. I think that because Jon Favreau is at the top of the ticket, that will not be the case. I'm not going to say that Jon Favreau is a conservative or a Republican, but I think if you actually look at what they did with Iron Man, he is definitely someone who would rather make a good story with good characters than focus on any political nonsense within the story. So I honestly think it's going to be better. But just for a frame of reference, Star Trek Discovery, cost around $8.5 million per episode. So this is going to cost more than Star Trek Discovery. And the one thing that I've heard good things about with Star Trek Discovery is that the effects are pretty cool, that the production value is at least there, even though the story and the characters aren't quite there either. This is from Favreau. He says, Star Wars is a big world, and Disney's new streaming service affords a wonderful opportunity to tell stories that stretch out over multiple chapters. That is already, the fact that that one phrase, that one sentence from Jon Favreau already has me going, yes, this is a huge thing. This is a huge opportunity. Has me very excited. Now, I know there have been people who've been critical. I myself have been critical of the streaming service because of the fact that they've been crippled. A lot of people might not know this, but they cannot stream the original Star Wars film until 2024 because of a deal they made back in 2016, because the people running Lucasfilm and Disney are just idiots right now. But when it comes to that, it's already going to be kind of pressed for, that big Star Wars push, because it's not going to be able to have those original films. And I'm sorry, you cannot deny that more people today would go would go to see a re-release of Star Wars: A New Hope in theaters more so than Solo, or even more so than Episode 9. I would even say. I think if you were to put them on the same weekend, I would be very interested to see what the result would be as far as who would go see what. Maybe not on the same weekend, but I think in the same year. It'd be very interesting to see opening weekend totals and stuff like that. Even though that film came out in the 1970s, I still think it would outperform a lot of other films coming out right now. So Favreau continues on saying, Favreau previously told Nerdist that the series will take place 7 years after the Battle of Endor in Return of the Jedi. That is really cool. I mean, I think I'm already excited for that. Unfortunately, the last section kind of has me a little iffy. It says, Favreau also stated that the show will feature all new characters and use cutting-edge CGI motion capture technology, similar to his Jungle Book and the Lion King movie. So the Jungle Book, as I said, the motion capture was, it was okay. So that kind of has me a little bit worried, seeing that this might be a very heavy CGI show, and I really do want this. To me, Star Wars can kind of get back to its roots, or get back to its former glory, not only by focusing on story and character elements, but also by focusing on less CGI elements and more, practical set pieces. That's one of the greatest things. One of the best things right now in theaters is Mission Impossible 6 Fallout. And guess what? It uses mostly practical effects. So it shows you that it can be done. It can be done very well, and it can be done well enough to be able to make a huge profit on top of that. So that's something I would love to see Star Wars get back to, but it looks like they're kind of going in that CGI, and this is something that we see a lot of big studios and a lot of big, big products, big concepts have been doing, is they've been relying mostly on CGI. So if it's done well, if it's done right, and it has a good story on top of that, then it should be fine. But it definitely has me concerned, and also having new characters. Seeing what we've gotten with new characters so far, with everything that happened with not only with the episodic movies like Episode 7 and 8 in the future 9, but also even in the independent projects, some of the names that we've been getting have just been absolutely ridiculous. So I really do hope that we get some really cool characters that don't try to fall into some political tropes, which is what we've been seeing a lot lately, especially from the newer films. So I really do hope that it's just, this is the best story I can tell. These are the best characters that can exist within this time frame, within this universe, and also I think it'd be really wise of them to make some connection to Return of the Jedi, to make some connection to the previous material, so that way the series can fall right in and make total sense. They try to do that with Rogue One, and I know that Rogue One has its defenders, but for me, I can just skip Rogue One, because I say, oh, I saw Rogue One once, so I know the story that they were trying to tell there, but at the end of the day, I can kind of skip it. I hope that this series becomes so integral to the story as the original trilogy did. So it'd be interesting to see what actually they do with it and what actually happens going forward. Lucasfilm also recently announced a new animated series taking place just before the events of Star Wars: The Force Awakens, titled Star Wars Resistance, which will have an anime-inspired look and debut this fall. And we've already seen kind of the images from it, and it just doesn't look, for me, it doesn't look very good. I know that, Jeremy, for example, and a lot of other people have a lot of faith in Dave Filoni. I think that in like the 16, 17 episodes that I'm into season 1 of Clone Wars, I know that he can write a very good show. I know that he can make a great show. But then also I hear the people saying, well, Rebels wasn't as good. It was more of a kid show. It was not as, all around. Because, people say, oh, well, Clone Wars was supposed to be a kid show. But to me, Clone Wars is a great example of a show that can be for anybody. That can be for adults, kids, etc. And then from what I hear about Rebels is that it was mostly geared towards kids with a few nuggets here and there. So for me, I really kind of hope that Resistance, though, based on what we've seen so far, I don't think it's going to go that way, is that Resistance is going to be more like Rebels, and maybe even worse, because now they're changing the animation style, which I personally am not a fan of. I know that some people, again, that's more of a preference thing, that's more of a subjective point of view, but as long as the writing is good, then it might be enough to be able to bring me in, at least once I finish Clone Wars and Rebels, but I'm not sure. Also, talking about this time period between the, before The Force Awakens, I don't know. I don't know if that's as interesting. I'm more interested. Notice how when you say before The Force Awakens, it automatically brings you that sense of, when if you say after Return of the Jedi, after the Battle of Endor, you're like, ooh, I wonder. And I really do think that kind of helps to explain where we are right now, at least as the fan base, that more people, when they hear a reference to the original trilogy, is going to be a lot more excited than the new one. And again, the new trilogy has its fans, and I'm not going to deny that fact. I'm not going to deny that there are a lot of people out there that like The Force Awakens. I'm one of those people. I like The Force Awakens. There are a lot of people who actually like The Last Jedi. My wife is one of them. So I understand why there are people that do like these movies, but at the end of the day, I think it does say a lot that when you are mentioning these things, when you mention this in conversation, that more people, I would bet you, would say, oh, I'm much more excited to find out what happens right after after the Battle of Endor, then, oh, I would really want to know what happens before The Force Awakens. And I really do think that says a lot about the characters, the development of the stories, and I think that it's also a big thing to think about going forward. All right, Disney's collaboration with Favreau extend back a decade when he helped launch the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a director of Iron Man and Iron Man 2, and as an executive producer of Iron Man and Avengers films for Marvel Studios. And again, Iron Man 2 was kind of the weak one, in my opinion. It was kind of the weakest overall, so I wonder how much studio involvement kind of affected the film, but no one can deny that Favreau still did not have a really strong performance, especially with the first Iron Man especially. Favreau is no stranger to the Star Wars galaxy, having voiced the Mandalorian Pres Vizsla in Star Wars The Clone Wars animated series, and as the CG creature Rio Durant in Solo: A Star Wars Story. Unfortunately, he was in Solo: Star Wars Story, but he was also attached to the Clone Wars too, so I think there's enough quite there. And also, of course, his history as a director and as a writer and as a producer, I think, precedes him, and I think that it's going to be a lot to look forward to. The untitled Star Wars live-action series does not yet have a release date, but the Disney direct-to-consumer platform will launch in late 2019. So guys, what are y'all's thoughts on this? Are you excited for this project? Are you excited for this Jon Favreau series? I personally, as I said, I am more excited for this series than I am for episode 9 at this point, because to me, episode 9 has so much to pick up from the ashes of episode 8 that I don't really know how well it's going to be. Some people have said maybe they're going to try and do it in 2 films. We've heard no indication of that, so I don't know how realistic that is. But to me, the best thing that they could do is make one film dedicated to fixing the mess, especially the damn hyperspace ram that I mentioned yesterday in episode 8, so that it can then pick up in the second part to actually make the story that J.J. Abrams originally intended. It also brings into account saying, why the hell didn't J.J. Abrams be given the entire trilogy when he first started off? He would have then at least made a coherent story that would have matched, and you could have put all the films on the screen. And even if they're not the best films, even if they're not the ones that people like, because I know there's some people who say they did not like The Force Awakens when it first came out, but most people would be able to say, this is a pretty decent trilogy. The problem is that they decided to give it to Rian Johnson, who, again, admits he is not a very good writer, somehow wins a Saturn Award for writing. God only knows. When you actually break down the storycraft, thanks to my boy Matthew Kadish, you actually see that narratively, objectively speaking, from a narrative standpoint, episode 8 has so many damn problems, and now we're left in this mess. So what are y'all's guys' thoughts on this show? Do you think Jon Favreau, the name alone and his reputation alone, is enough to bring you in to watch the series? Maybe not by the network, and maybe not buy the streaming service, but maybe enough to watch it in other ways. Please let me know in the comments below. I'd greatly appreciate that. And also, let me know your thoughts about $100 million. Do you think that that's too much? Do you think that's just the right amount? Do you think that's just the way that we, the world that we're living in today? Do you think that that means that we're probably going to get some high-quality, Netflix-quality shows on the streaming service? And does that make you interested enough to actually buy the service? I've said this before. I would be interested in getting the Disney streaming service if they promise their entire backlog of Disney shows and movies. If that is a part of the package and it's only like $9, maybe to $12 a month, then I might actually be interested, because there are a lot of Disney shows, especially, and of course of the Disney films, that I would be interested in watching again. So let me know y'all's thoughts on that. I would greatly appreciate that. Guys, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I say that a lot, but it is really true. Y'all are awesome. I love y'all so much. And also, I'm going to say this once again, if you've never joined our live streams, please do that. We do it maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and we have a lot of fun. We talk about not just Star Wars, but other parts of the movie industry, and it's a good time. So let me know what y'all's thoughts are. Have a great day, and as always, God bless.